I get it. When you're scrolling through endless laptop listings, you start to feel like you're reading a brochure written by a marketer, not a real person who's actually tried the machine. You see those glossy photos of a 16-inch, 3K touchscreen and a sleek black chassis, and you imagine yourself editing 4K video on the go or running a complex simulation while sipping coffee at a CAF. The problem is, a lot of those promises end up feeling flat when you finally sit down at the keyboard, and you end up with a pricey piece of metal that doesn't fit your workflow. That's why I'm doing this deep dive on the Lenovo ThinkPad P1 Gen 8, so you can decide if it's the workstation you need or just another eye-catchy spec sheet. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the kind of work this laptop is built for. Lenovo markets the P1 as a mobile workstation aimed at creators, engineers, and data scientists who need serious graphics horsepower and a display that can show every nuance of a CAD model or a color-graded video frame. If your day revolves around Adobe Premiere, Blender, or running TensorFlow models, you'll immediately notice that the Core Ultra 7255H processor is paired with an NVIDIA RTX PRO 2000 GPU. In practice, that combo means you can render a 10-minute 4K video with effects in roughly half the time you'd expect on a high-end consumer laptop, and you can spin up a small AI inference job without the system choking. I tested the machine on a typical work-from-anywhere day. I started with a morning Zoom call, then opened a large Photoshop file, around 1.2 gigabytes, while a background script was training a style transfer model, and finally switched to a 3-hour Premiere timeline edit. The touchscreen was surprisingly responsive. There's a slight lag when you drag a selection across the full 32002000 canvas, but it's hardly noticeable for drawing or annotating. The 120 Hz refresh rate made scrolling through long timelines buttery smooth, which is a nice touch for video editors who get irritated by stutter. Now, let's get into the practical strengths that actually matter once you've unboxed the thing. The first is the display's color accuracy out of the box. Most reviewers complain that you need a hardware calibrator for any professional-grade screen. But on the P1, the sRGB coverage is already at 100%, and the DCI-P3 wedge is close to 95%. In my day-to-day use, colors looked consistent whether I was grading a short film or adjusting a brand's color palette for a presentation. The second strength is the storage speed. The 1TB PCIe 4.0 SSD delivered near-theoretical read/write numbers, which meant my 30 GB Premiere project opened in under 10 seconds and rendered previews without hiccups. That's a tangible time saver when deadlines are tight. The third practical advantage is the keyboard layout. It's an English-language ThinkPad keyboard, which means the tactile feedback is still there despite the laptop's thin profile. The key travel is a little shorter than on the older ThinkPad T series, but the typing experience remains comfortable for long coding sessions. I also appreciated the presence of a dedicated numeric keypad, a feature that's vanished from most ultra-portables, but is still useful for engineers who do a lot of spreadsheet work. On the flip side, there are a few trade-offs that can bite you if you're not careful. The biggest is thermal management. The P1 packs a powerful CPU and a discrete GPU into a chassis that's only about 0.6 inches thick. And while Lenovo's ThinkPad intelligent cooling does keep the laptop from throttling under moderate loads, you'll notice the fans spin up aggressively when you push the RTX PRO 2000 to its limit, like during a full 3D render. The noise level climbs to around 45 dB, which is audible in a quiet office and can be distracting during a conference call. If you plan to do sustained heavy GPU work in a shared space, you might want to consider an external cooling pad. Battery life is another realistic weakness. The 80Wh cell gives you roughly 5 hours of mixed use, some browsing, a bit of video playback, and a short editing session before you're back to the wall. That's decent for a workstation with a high-resolution screen, but it's not the kind of all-day endurance you'd get from a typical business ultrabook. So, if you expect to be off-grid for a full day, you'll need to budget for a spare charger or a power bank that can handle a 100W input. Port selection is practical, but worth noting. You get 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, an HDMI 2.1, a full-size SD card reader, and a USB-A 3.2 Gen 2. That covers most peripheral needs, but there's no Ethernet port, which means you'll have to rely on a dongle or the built-in Wi-Fi 6E for wired connections. For most freelancers, that's fine, but a studio that still uses wired networking for stability might find that a minor inconvenience. Who should buy this ThinkPad? If you're a freelance video editor, 3D artist, or data scientist who needs a portable machine that can